Hi, my name's Jess Phillips. I'm with Weber County Emergency Management, and I'm here today with Clint Waddups. He is the owner of Waddups Insurance Agency in Ogden, Utah, and we're so glad to have you with
Yeah.
us, Clint.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for
Sure,
having me.
sure. So, Clint, one of the reasons why I asked you to come today was because when you look at assessment reports for Ogden and for Weaver County, one of our biggest risks here is earthquake.
Right?
And so I wanted to just kind of talk about earthquake insurance. And I have some questions that I've come up with here. So
Perfect.
I'm just going to read these, and then you can just tell us what your expertise on them, and just tell them how we can know more
You bet.
about
You
these
bet. You
questions.
bet.
Um, so most people in Utah don't think much about earthquakes. Should homeowners here really be concerned about earthquakes?
Yeah. So, in the business of insurance, you think about it, I am trying to help people manage their risk, and earthquake is a risk. And so, I think most families, if you're a homeowner, it is a good idea to have an earthquake insurance policy of some kind. Doesn't always fit everybody's particular needs at particular times of their life or where they're at in terms of home ownership. But from a general perspective, you can't ever go wrong with having some type of earthquake insurance protection.
Awesome. Um, so I think that most people think that they're covered by earthquake insurance, but in my experience, um, I don't think most people are. So does regular home insurance cover earthquakes?
It's a great question, and one we as insurance professionals in our industry get pretty regularly. Two terms that I would tell people to look at when they're reviewing their homeowners declaration page of their policy would be an endorsement and an exclusion. And so, endorsement meaning that it's been some sort of coverage added to their regular homeowners policy. And so, if you pull that up and you don't see earthquake insurance endorsed anywhere, it's very likely that they don't have it on a traditional homeowner's policy. Exclusion, if they pull that term up in their policy declaration packet and they see earthquake insurance is excluded, then they'll immediately know that they do not have that on their normal homeowner's policy. And in my experience over the last decade or so, most people here in Utah do not have that coverage on a traditional, what we call HO3 or HO5. They're just different types of homeowners policies. It's not very common that earthquake coverage is endorsed. But if you have a declaration page or whichever carrier you're with, I would recommend just reaching out to your agent to find out whether or not you have that endorsed or excluded on your policy. But in most cases, most of the time, we find that people do not have it on their traditional homeowners policy.
Yeah, I know from my homeowner's insurance, that was one of the things I looked at, and I was not covered.
Right.
So I went and got homeowner's insurance that had a separate policy for just earthquake insurance.
Right. Right. And that's most common what we would recommend. There's several different options that are available to people here in the state of Utah, and it does vary state by state. There's different, rules and regulations on how earthquake coverage works, but most of the time, you can reach out to whoever your insurance professional is, and they can either endorse it or include it on your homeowner's policy. Or they can go out and find a earthquake insurance policy that's considered a monoline or a standalone policy in addition to your traditional home policy that you have on your home.
Okay. Um, what exactly does earthquake insurance cover, and what does it not cover?
Also, a fantastic question. Again, I would recommend people that they reach out to whoever their professional is that they're working with to get the specifics on what would be listed underneath the declaration page of their policy. But from a general scope, you can kind of think of your earthquake insurance policy working similar to your home policy. in terms of what it would cover for damage. Of course, that damage does need to be earthquake related
Hmm.
before that coverage would kick in and come into play. And so, when you think damage to your home from an earthquake, you can kind of think of it similarly to, damage to my home from something else working similarly like your traditional home policy would work. And an earthquake policy kind of works the same way. Of course, it just has to be related to damage from a covered earthquake loss or a covered earthquake situation.
Yeah, when I was looking into earthquake insurance, like I saw that in my policy, it doesn't cover the ground, so I don't know what would damage the ground. But like if a big fault came in, the earthquake insurance doesn't cover that.
Yeah, so again, those two terms that we mentioned previously, so endorsed or excluded,
Yeah.
or some of the limitations within the declaration pages of an earthquake policy are going to give you the exact language of what you'd want to be aware of, and that can vary from carrier to carrier. But there are going to be some limitations of, okay, if this part of my home was damaged, is there actually coverage for that or not? And so I would point people to their declaration pages of an earthquake policy. But in a general scope, damage to your home outside of the foundation, depending on the exterior type of your home, there will be coverage when it is earthquake related. But for sure, review the limitations and the language of the policy with whoever your professional that you're working with is.
Okay. Um, how is the cost for earthquake insurance calculated?
So that's a tricky question.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure it is.
The calculation, as insurance advisors, we're not even always privy to see how it's calculated per se. But a good rule of thumb would for homeowners to look at the square footage of their property, and that's going to be a pretty good indicator of how much earthquake insurance you actually need based off of the square footage of your home. Similar to your traditional homeowners policy, that's kind of going to be where it's calculated. And then the other thing that they look at is what's called a TIV, and that stands for total insurable value
Hmm.
of your property. And that's another good figure that earthquake insurers will look at to determine the premium, the cost, is what is going to be the total value that you want to have insured. It'll generate that number, and then based off of that number, it will then generate a premium for you. Of course, each carrier will calculate it probably slightly different, but a total insurable value is kind of that bottom line figure that an earthquake carrier is going to look at when we look at building a premium for you.
So it makes sense that if you have a bigger house, you're going to pay more for
Absolutely, yeah.
earthquake
The
insurance. Yeah.
larger the risk, or the larger the value that you have, the larger the policy or the premium is going to be for sure.
Okay. Is earthquake insurance expensive for the average homeowner in Weber County?
Great question. We get this one regularly as well. I think expensive can be kind of a relative term to,
Yeah.
depending on where you're at in the demographic of life. But it is attainable. Again, depending on the size of your home, whether it's large, big, small, it's going to have an impact on what your premium looks like. But there are different policies available to try and meet the needs of each homeowner to fit within their budget. When I started in the industry a little over a decade ago, I felt like it was very expensive to, your average homeowner. But I feel like policies have gotten a bit more sophisticated, and there's been a bit of change to try and help homeowners obtain earthquake insurance if they absolutely want to. Another thing that homeowners can do when you purchase an earthquake insurance policy, if you have a mortgage on your home, a lot of times what we do is we bill the homeowner's insurance premium directly through your escrow.
Oh,
And you can also use your escrow to do that with your earthquake insurance as well.
okay.
So if you had $1,000 a year earthquake policy, you can bill that directly through your escrow, and then it just comes out of your mortgage payment each month. And that seems to be like a good solution for most people.
Yeah.
Again, that'll vary carrier to carrier, but that helps with some of the affordability concerns that people have.
Nice. Are there different deductible options or coverage levels homeowners can choose from?
Yeah, absolutely. Most carriers, from a generic standpoint, typically have a deductible range you can select from. What I see most often is about a 5% minimum deductible, all the way up to a 25% on the high end. And then, of course, depending on which one of those you choose within that range is going to have an impact on your premium.
Mm.
Some carriers will even get down to like a 2.5 as the lowest and up to a 30 as the highest. But those ranges, you'll want to discuss those with whoever your insurance professional is to try and find, what you'd feel comfortable with in terms of absorbing that deductible in the event of a loss. So, for example, you got a $400,000 total insurable value on your home, and that's what your earthquake policy stated. With a 10% deductible, you would be assessed the $40,000 of deductible for the earthquake insurance would kick in to provide any coverage. And so, using those figures as kind of a basic example, you kind of decide what you'd feel comfortable with taking on, and each homeowner is going to be case by case.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, not it's not the same for all people.
Yeah, not the same for all people, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So how can someone find out if they already have earthquake coverage or on their current policy?
Great question. I would point people to whoever their agent might be or the carrier that they're working with. They can reach out to that individual or that company directly and just say, hey, is my current homeowner's policy have earthquake coverage endorsed on that or not? And they should be able to receive confirmation whether they have it or not. And then another good resource is just going directly to their declaration pages. And if they can't find earthquake coverage anywhere on that declaration page, it's likely that they do not have it. But again, I would just point people back to whoever their insurance professional is or their advisor might be. Make a phone call, shoot an email, and just reach out and say, hey, does my current homeowner's policy have any earthquake coverage? And that insurance advisor professional should be able to confirm whether that's on the declaration page or not.
So would it be fair to say that most people, if they just have a normal homeowner's insurance, they probably don't have earthquake
Yeah, I would
insurance?
say it's fair to say that. Most people with just, you purchased a home, you bought a homeowner's insurance policy. Most of the time, earthquake coverage is not included on something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Um, if they don't have it or earthquake insurance, how can they add it or get a quote?
Great question. Again, adding it would be through whoever their carrier or insurance professional is. If that particular carrier has earthquake as a available endorsement or addition to their policy, they can add it directly that way. Or they can work with whoever their carrier or insurance professional is to find another standalone policy that would be separate from their homeowner's policy. We're finding that seems to work well for most people, but again, everybody's situation is unique to theirs. So I would say reach out to whoever you're working with and ask if you've got it, and if not, you can endorse it, include it on your current home policy, or go find a earthquake policy specific just to earthquake coverage.
Okay. Um, and can you get earthquake insurance from any company, or do you need to go through a specific provider?
Yeah, so some carriers will either offer that endorsement as an option, some will not. I can't speak to every single carrier, so it would be beneficial to reach out to whoever your current carrier is to find out if they offer it or not. If it's not offered by that particular carrier, then typically, a homeowner can reach out to, they can use even an online internet resource to just Google earthquake insurance, and it should populate some options for them specifically here in the Weber County area. Their insurance professional is going to be a good resource as well, but there's definitely solutions out there for families here in this area. If they want to have it, they can reach out to whoever they're working with and find a policy.
Does your company offer earthquake insurance?
Yeah, so we have some different solutions for people. We both do the endorsement or the addition to their current policy if they want to go that route, or we also do the traditional just standalone earthquake policy in addition to their homeowner's policy. I feel like, from my professional opinion, that seems to work best for most people because they can kind of keep them separated and know what they have versus what they do not have. And it avoids that earthquake coverage potentially getting lost in the shuffle of being endorsed or added on their traditional home policy.
Awesome. Okay, so some practical advice here. When's the best time to get earthquake insurance, and should you wait until after the earthquake happens nearby?
Yeah, so if you wait till it happens and you don't have, you're probably going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
But I would just tell people to, insurance isn't something that people think about hardly at all, very, very often, as we should. And
Yeah.
so a good time to look at it is just each year when your homeowner's policy is coming up for renewal. If you don't have it, that's a great reminder, a great time to look at it. But you can typically purchase a policy at any time that you would like. Here in Utah, I would advise people if they do not have it to reach out to whoever their insurance professional or carrier is and see what their options are. You're definitely going to be better off if you have it versus not having it. And there's solutions out there that people can find for sure.
Awesome. Um, what's one thing homeowners misunderstand most about earthquake insurance?
I think what's widely misunderstood is the cost, right? There's kind of a underlying fear that it's just extremely expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that that's a big fear of people having an entry point to purchasing or looking at buying earthquake insurance coverage. But that's no longer the case in my professional opinion. And then just the hassle of trying to learn another insurance policy that they have to keep track of. So those are some of the biggest issues that we run into. And so I would just tell people to reach out to their insurance provider or advisor and say, hey, I'm interested in earthquake, and they can definitely guide them to a solution that will work well for them.
Yeah. Okay. Um, what's your best piece of advice for someone on the fence about getting earthquake insurance?
My best piece of advice in terms of earthquake, and I think this can be applied to insurance in general, right? It really is the transfer of risk.
Hmm.
And so when it comes to an earthquake, do you want to be a homeowner that didn't provide yourself an opportunity to transfer the earthquake risk to somebody else, in this case, your insurance carrier, or do you want to mitigate that loss yourself? Obviously, when you work with a professional, you can kind of find the pros and cons and find a good solution of what's going to fit your budget, your time frame. But I would tell people that earthquake insurance is a great way to reduce your risk and transfer it to somebody else, and then which would be an insurance carrier. And so my biggest recommendation would be reach out to whoever you're working with now and see if it's going to fit your budget and be a good solution for you. Because in most cases, I think you'll be far better off with it versus without it.
Yeah. Um, if someone wants to, and I think you've covered this, but if someone wants to learn more or get a quote, where should they start?
Yeah, I mean, the very first place I would point people to start is just whoever they're currently working with on their insurance policy. We're professionals for a reason. We're there to help guide and advise on what people should do to protect their assets. Of course, their home is most people one of people's largest assets that they have, or that they're working on building equity in. And so that would be my first recommendation. Just go directly to who you're working with. If you don't feel comfortable, confident doing that, then you can, of course, just go directly to the internet and type in earthquake insurance, and you should be given several different options to reach out, make a few phone calls. But there's definitely resources out there in terms of finding help if people need it.
Great. Well, Clint, I sure appreciate you taking the time
Yeah, no problem.
to talk with us today.
You bet.
This is a very relevant concern for the Wasatch County or Wasatch area, and then for Weber County.
Right.
So one of the things that, if you live in Weber County, that I want to emphasize is that every year there's a risk assessment report done for an area, and one of the number one risks for Weber County is earthquakes. I think we all know that we live on a fault line, and that someday the earthquake is coming, and it's been coming for a long time. It's been coming. They've been saying that for over 100 years. So we just want to make sure that we're prepared. Some people think that an earthquake's going to happen and my house is going to get ruined and the government's going to bail me out. But the reality is that might not happen. And two, if that does happen, it could take a very long time for that to happen. Whereas if you have an earthquake insurance policy with a private company, then you'll be able to get your home rebuilt much, much quicker, and quite honestly, probably better. So if you live in Weber County, I highly recommend that you go and look for earthquake insurance. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching our video today on earthquake insurance. Again, I'm Jess Phillips with Weber County Emergency Management, and this is Clint Waddups with Waddups Insurance Agency here in Ogden, Utah. And go ahead and subscribe so that you can get more of these tips. And then you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram also. Thanks again.